really happy to finish off the conference with a really interesting panel on battery technology and battery technology specifically in the oil field. We know that it's been a hot topic. You know, a lot of people talking about EVs and just battery power in general. We talked about it a little bit yesterday with the VoltaGrid guys, but we really wanted to get a little deeper into it and talk a little bit more about what actually goes into those batteries. So with us today, we've got Rhett Bennett from Black Mountain Metals and Dave Bosco from MTU. Thanks, guys. Welcome.
Thank you.
So again, you know, we've talked a little bit around it so far. Why don't we just have Rhett just give us a little background on where you're from, what you've been up to, and then Dave do the same, and we'll get into it a little bit.
Sure. So Rhett Bennett, founder of Black Mountain back in 2007. Everything we've done has always been within natural resources, and whether that's been upstream E&P, mineral royalty, midstream disposals. So always been in that space, frac sand mining as well. About 3 years ago, we got intrigued on the EV thematic, and really it was, and I've told the story a few times, but I'd gone up to the New York Stock Exchange Energy Leaders Forum, and they were giving, an IHS economist was giving a roundtable entitled The Coming EV Revolution and Implications for Oil and Gas. And really at that point in time, 3 years ago, in my simple mind, I just raised my hand like, aren't we just drilling another natural gas well instead of an oil well because EVs get their electricity from somewhere? And the economist made a statement that just kind of stuck with me. He said, well, yes and no, but it's not going to be apples to apples, and that EVs are 80% more efficient than internal combustion engines due to heat loss. And look, I've done oil and gas from the day I got out of college, like oil and gas guy through and through, but that 80%, like, it's a big number on efficiencies. And just knowing over the course of human history efficiencies win, it really captivated me, caught my attention. And so then we just thought about, well, how can we play it in a way that makes sense? And for us, that was the natural resources angle. So we took a strong look at nickel, copper, cobalt, et cetera, and really tried to think about how could we play the thematic if you do believe over time adoption will continue to grow. And that for whatever reason, somewhere during the pandemic, it just felt like it really accelerated that people weren't debating as much as kind of embracing it. You know, overall, the world's glowing and needs more forms, all forms of energy. You know, so maybe oil doesn't grow at, you know, 1.5 million, 2 million barrel a day kind of growth rate. But, you know, clearly the transition's a multi-decade kind of deal. But I think it's definitely underway, and EVs have gotten quite competitive on cost parity. So it's a theme that's real and growing.
Great, thanks, Rhett. And Dave, why don't you do the same?
Hi, Dave Bosco, Senior Sales Business Development Manager, Global Oil and Gas at MTU, and glad to be here. Thanks to Daniel Energy Partners for putting on this conference. It's been great so far. So at MTU and Rolls-Royce Power Systems, we're focused on being solutions providers in multiple different industry segments, whether it's oil and gas, mining, the industrial areas, as well as marine and power generation. And we saw many years ago, going through this journey, seeing the electrification kind of shift in the mining business, as well as what we've seen early on in the drilling industry, I would say, that there was a lot of steam building inside of the completion space, looking for ways to go ahead and lower total cost ownership, improve efficiencies, meet ESG challenges. And that's when we started looking at battery technologies and different types of power systems to go ahead and support customers on that journey. And so what we have right now is a portfolio of power generation assets, as well as battery storage technologies through some acquisitions, and we're bringing those to market.
Great, thanks, Dave. So, you know, at Daniel Energy Partners, we don't claim to be experts on batteries. You know, we interact with them. Frankly, none of us here own a Tesla. I don't think it's happening in the near future for us. But look, we talk about batteries. We talk about lithium-ion batteries a lot. We're all interacting with them, but we really don't even know what goes into them. So I thought, Rhett, you could help us out, with kind of a 101. What is in a lithium-ion battery, and how does it frankly work?
Sure. There's certainly several different types of batteries, whether it's LFP or NMC, and so and those are just kind of the ingredients, it's the acronyms. But overall, I think probably, at least from the mobility perspective, there's a lot of movement towards NMC, which is nickel, manganese, cobalt. That in particular seems to be giving consumers what they want, which is duration and range with an EV. And obviously nobody wants to charge up every 30 miles. So increasing proportions of nickel, and then cobalt's used for stability. At a high level, we got super comfortable with the trend lines for nickel. That's what we've kind of focused on initially, from a supply perspective. But then also like copper a lot, if you're a believer in the electrification of the world, copper has the second best conductivity in the world, the first being silver. Obviously silver's more expensive, so that's why copper wires are kind of laid everywhere. So if you kind of believe in that thematic, it's hard not to be kind of a copper bull in this environment too. So yeah, there's a range of kind of raw materials, but overall we think the trend lines are pretty strong for all of them.
Yeah, can you elaborate a little bit on what goes into the mining? I mean, again, we all know here about the extraction of oil and gas, not as familiar with the mining of nickel, cobalt, copper. A little bit about what you guys see from that perspective.
Yeah, sure. It was I don't want to say an easy transition, but it's a natural resources extraction business, just like we all run. So you're changing drilling for, equipment, et cetera. And so, I don't think we're necessarily, building rockets. I don't view that part as complex. It's operations just like we all run. And so I think that's what attracted us was the natural resources aspect, and then the extraction aspect and running operations. That felt more comfortable to us than trying to get involved in the chemistry of designing batteries, et cetera, which is clearly over my head. So I want no part of that.
So, look, again, a lot like what we do, you see geopolitical risk. Again, the demand, we're seeing the demand. We're seeing EVs being built, batteries being built. Where's the demand for the resource that you guys extract today?
Yeah, so for most of kind of the battery metal elements of the periodic table, I mean, for good jurisdictions, you're talking about Canada, U.S., Australia. On nickel, Philippines and Indonesia are big. Those are harder to invest in. South America in general is harder to invest in. But I would say Canada and Australia particularly will do quite well in kind of a electrification of the world kind of thematic. The U.S. has good copper resources and lithium. I would say Canada and Australia more so on the nickel side. And then just in general, Australia is blessed with an abundance of all natural resources, but those places.
So those are good places
yes.
to be doing this. Again, on the demand side, where do you guys see that? I mean, look, we're talking GM saying that they're going to go all electric by 2035. That is just one, passenger vehicles. Again, we're talking on from our world, people are using more batteries. So obviously there's going to be some sort of shortfall, or we're going to have to come up with other ways to extract this stuff. Just if you could talk a little bit about that and the demand and supply.
Yeah, there's absolutely not enough supply to meet everybody's aspirations and projections. And so if you were to take just Tesla, for example, so put aside the Toyotas, Volkswagens, everybody else in the world that wants to build EVs, but if you just took Tesla's 2030 ambitions and projections, they would consume the entire nickel supply of the top 6 producers in the world. So think BHP, Vale, Rio Tinto, Glencore, et cetera. So that's one car manufacturer. So clearly you're going to have a supply problem. You already do. And the biggest difference that I've noticed in between oil and gas and mining thus far is just your speed to market. On the oil and gas side, we're just so nimble and responsive. today with an oil price signal of 63, 64, we can add rigs next month and really kind of be meaningfully adding supply. Mining, not so much. I mean, it's on average 5 to 8 years to bring on a new greenfield mining a deposit. So it's prices won't save you. You can't add supply in a meaningful way rapidly, for better or worse. And so that's something that we've certainly observed, and why we like, from a commodities perspective, the battery metals coming up. So, yeah, maybe that answered it.
Yeah, I think so. Well, look, I think it highlights the supply-demand issue that we're going to have. I mean, obviously, people are going to need to become, like everything, new technologies to be able to extract this stuff and to do quickly. Again, we're seeing a huge amount of interest. And so you need these metals in order to make the battery.
You do. And one comment on the copper side, if you were to, for all the existing kind of, let's call it post-COVID stimulus kind of packages, infrastructure, announced governmental infrastructure packages, the amount of copper consumption in the next 15 years would equal all the copper consumption over the last 100 years. So you're just talking about trying to wedge in a massive energy transition in a short period of time, and that's going to lead to inflation and higher prices.
Yeah, I mean, on the copper side, you're already seeing, I mean, it's all over the news that copper's rocketed. So
yeah, yep.
So let's switch gears a little to Dave. So you mentioned that MTU is going down this path of having alternative battery storage, power operations for your customers. Can you go a little bit into why you guys chose lithium ion and the solution that you guys chose?
Yeah, Bill, great question. So the reason that we chose lithium ion is when you look at storage technologies, especially in oil and gas applications, right? You want to have a nice mixture between fast storage, long-term storage, as well as life of that storage medium. And lithium ion really addresses a lot of those different needs. And it gives companies the ability to quickly power up a battery and be able to move that from site to site without losing or having significant amount of degradation over a long period of, maybe they decide not to use it for a week or a couple of months. And it also provides us with the ability to manage temperature as well as many other things inside of that battery to go ahead and keep it in a healthy operating condition, so that, if you look at an oil and gas application, right, safety is of the utmost importance aside from anything else, right? When you have human beings that are in a completion operation, you need to go ahead and make sure you're using a technology that offers safety features. And lithium ion checks all those boxes. And, let's face it, Rhett was talking about the scalability of lithium ion. Prices are coming down. It provides a really economical, good mixture for mass scale.
Yeah, a little bit on, if you could go a little bit deeper on the efficiencies that you guys see, right? Rhett mentioned it, at least on the EV side, you're seeing much more efficient than a combustion engine. How does that affect you? I mean, you guys obviously still make combustion engines too. So talk a little bit about how the battery works with that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, efficiency, let's face it, when you're looking at ESG, that's of the utmost concern with everybody today. The way that, we traditionally have operated mechanical equipment in the past, you've got a large amount of efficiency losses, as well as their, operators typically don't take advantage of all the power that's available. And so when you combine a battery energy storage system with a reciprocating natural gas engine, for example, and have a hybrid approach, you truly can optimize how that system performs and deliver higher efficiency on the electrical side to the endpoint equipment. And what that really does for a service company, for example, or an E&P, is it allows you to bring assets that can be run at much higher load factors, store energy for later use, and can really control and orchestrate how that power generation system operates at a very, very granular scale.
And do you see there being different configurations on how that would all fit in with the battery energy storage?
Yeah, so if we look at, frac, for example, I think there's some very advanced companies out there that are, already been electrified in frac operations for a while, right? But you look at the investment that it takes to go ahead and fully scale out to what I would call a modular frac system. So you've got the power generation assets separated from the pumping unit, separated from the blender. Everything's connected in with the switch gear and cables going in between it. That works great for some companies, but if you look at smaller businesses that may only have 30,000 horsepowers in their fleet, that type of approach is really, really difficult for them to move into. So with battery technology and reciprocating natural gas and diesel engines as well, we see there's a really, really neat solution where you can package all of those units on a single trailer and take a common approach that we're all used to, where you back a trailer right into the missile, hook up your high pressure, low pressure side, have your fuel source connected along with a control cable, and you can be fracking in 4 to 6 hours. I mean, that almost brings, I hate to use the analogy of the iPhone, right? But, you've got to have e-frac for the masses. And that's where we see hybrid solutions being able to deliver this system to small businesses as well. And I think that's where the industry continues to get healthy and offer, some significant technology advantages over what we've been doing in the past.
Sure, John.
Yeah, so I mean, John, great question. This is, when I've been with MTU going on 4 years now, and in the oil and gas business for about 15. And up until I would say probably 2 or 3 years ago, diesel has been the primary focus, right? And with the proliferation of natural gas and this readily available resource that we have available in fields, more people want to consume it. And I think a reciprocating natural gas engine and generator set is a great way for folks to go ahead and tap into a field gas source to provide power generation at the localized level, whether it's in a microgrid application for a EFRAC or a drilling operation, or for production application. And you have a much more diversified asset at that point, right? It's really difficult with let's take a diesel frac trailer, right? If you're a business, you can't take that asset and diversify yourself. And when you're in between jobs, you can't go and do much except frac and maybe do some coiled tubing work and drill outs. But when you have a power generation asset that now can provide you with an additional revenue stream to subsidize your main revenue stream, which is fracking, it allows companies to be more profitable and get more out of their assets, which is critical for the health, I think, of companies in the oil and gas business as well as the industry. Oh yeah, I mean, every conversation we're having today is solely focused on natural gas. And I guess, if we look at what the demand looks like today versus, the next 3 to 5 years, I think we're going to see a continued transition to natural gas-based equipment and hybrid solutions because, the efficiency, the automation, the scalability that you have with electrified systems versus mechanical systems. I mean, it's I equate it to the drilling market. You look at drilling rigs back in the 80s and 90s, they were all mechanical. You had individual engines paired to a piece of equipment. And now you've got centralized power generation assets that's powering everything on site. Drillers have been able to get laser focused on, increasing profitability, increasing performance, getting more feet drilled on a daily basis. And I think that's the journey that we're in with the completion and frac side of the business. It's going there. And, we see the best way to get there is with the recip engine and battery energy storage system from MTU Rolls-Royce.
Great. Thanks, Dave. So, Rhett, there's more a question for you. So, again, it's been brought up a couple times today and this past week, but obviously last week we had a lot of crazy weather in the state of Texas. The extreme cold, a lot of different power systems were affected by that. can you talk a little bit about what a battery? I mean, really reducing battery life because of that extreme cold. Is that something we should be talking a lot about now, or can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, no question. I think you have kind of reduced, efficiency and weather extremes when it kind of comes to batteries, not unlike, your diesel truck or anything else. So, no, without a doubt. I mean, I think if anything was demonstrated kind of with the Texas freeze, it was, kind of a over-reliance on any one thing without sufficient kind of backup kind of plans is a real problem. And I think I've seen a couple graphs where, natural gas really saved the day relative to wind's contribution kind of during that time. And not a knock on wind, but it wasn't available at that point. And one of the great things about, fossil fuels, if you will, is the reliability is just off the charts. So, yeah, I mean, I think, all that's kind of a physics issue on just efficiency on weather-related kind of battery stuff. But I think, in general, I think the lesson is have a diverse and kind of redundant supply of affordable energy is probably your best plan. So, yeah.
And again, batteries, can they play a role in that? I mean, I guess the answer should be, I think, yes. But how do you think about that?
Yeah. For what we experienced last week, in the near term, I don't see that from a battery perspective. I mean, long duration storage at this point for batteries is 4 hours, and so that, if you have a multi-day event, that's a real problem. Other traditional sources of energy storage, like pumped hydro, for example, which has been around for 80 years, is basically pumping water up and bringing it down depending on when you need the power. So that's a longer duration storage. One that's interesting and I think relevant to our industry, case compressed air energy storage. So basically pumping air into underground, either depleted reservoirs or salt caverns, and then using that pressurized air to spin turbines on the way up. Like that's super intriguing to me. I know nothing about it except what I just said, but being an oil and gas guy and thinking about injection and pulling out of the ground, like that feels like something the industry could be good at. And for that fact, just on the ESG train, we should totally be leaders when it comes to carbon sequestration. I mean, who knows more about drilling wells and injecting stuff in the ground than oil and gas guys? So, I think whether we like it or not, I don't know if a carbon tax is coming, but there's already kind of efficient commodity markets for carbon trading. Like that's a real business that oil and gas guys have skill sets for, that I think we should be open-minded to.
Great. Yeah, I wrote that down. I don't have to Google compressed air storage, figure that out. So we talked a little bit about it, somewhere your minds are. For Black Mountain, where are you guys located, and how do you help fill out this, top six guys on the nickel side, for just Tesla? Like, how do you guys play in that whole world when it gets really
Yeah, so the nickel mines are in Western Australia, so think kind of 2 hours kind of east of Perth. So literally other side of the world, which has its own set of challenges. But that's a jurisdiction that historically has been blessed with kind of good nickel assets. And so I think West Texas oil and gas is the best analogy I can make. So a lot of kind of the prerequisite services you need, supply chain, et cetera. So that'll be an area that'll probably see a lot of investment coming up. And not unlike West Texas, it's proliferated with a fair amount of independents and juniors. And so it is an interesting kind of nickel district. We really like Australia a lot. I think, if you were to talk about it in North America, most of Canada is dominated kind of by the majors at this point. Not a lot to write home about within the U.S. But yeah, I think we'll stay active in Western Australia, look at some more acquisitions, hopefully find some more kind of bolt-on opportunities, and maybe aspire to be a kind of relevant nickel producer in the coming years.
Cool. Sean, anything? from your end? Anything you want to add? Not to put you on the spot.
Nothing to add, but are we getting close to the end here?
Yeah, I think that's right. That's what.
Well, what I was going to say is I was going to thank both of you, Dave, Rhett, for being on the panel. You're going to have to sit up here while I kind of give the closing speech here. No, I just want to thank, number one, I want to thank all the sponsors, right? All the companies, all the speakers, all the moderators, Upright Digital for making this event a reality. A special thank you to the Astros staff, both the back office folks that helped kind of facilitate this event from day one, and all the people on the ground out there working in the stadium from the Astros staff. You've done a phenomenal job taking care of us. We couldn't have asked for better service. You guys have really delivered an unbelievable event. And I think what I would really think about as I think about this event and what it means to the industry, the Thrive Energy Conference. This was a concept that John came up with, back in October, early fall, I would say. And, the demand in the world to get out and see people, right? There was over 1,000 registrations for people to show up in person. And I think it's super powerful when you think about the demand for people to get out and just talk to folks. And I think that is going to be a big surprise in our oil demand in the back half of this year. I think you're going to see oil demand significantly better than people think, because people are going to want to get out and travel, both personally and on business. And I think this is a great example of that. So I won't be surprised if we actually get back to 100 million barrels a day before all the smart guys think so. So we'll see. The last thing I would like to say is Daniel Energy Partners, I said this in the opening comments, we're passionate about research, we're passionate about relationships, we're passionate about unique events, and we're super passionate about having fun. And our next unique event, we hope to see all of you there, is in Midland. We host the Midland Barbecue on September 28th, and I hope you all fly out to Midland and experience what John has created in Midland. Is something you've never seen. Like I said, Texas Monthly called it the Woodstock for frackers. I don't even know how to describe that, but we would hope you all will come out to Midland September 28th. And then this event, just so you know, for 2022 has already been scheduled. We're going to be February 23rd and 24th, so we're going to do 2 full days. And get your tickets early and get your sponsorship stuff set up early, because this thing is going to be 2 times or 3 times as big next year. Can't thank you enough. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.